Hello and welcome to the Tennis Menu's year-end review. This is it. The weirdest year, that's all we can say, is done and dusted. We've had a COVID suspension. We've had no crowds. We've had 3 slams instead of 4. We've had no grass court tournaments. This has been bizarre. And Val Febo here with you to dissect it for the Tennis Menu's daily, not daily anymore. I'm still talking about the year-end final show, but we're done with that. This has been a weird year, and we're here to discuss it all with you. We're here to review it. Val Febo, Joel Ferrucci joins me. Joel, how are you?
Yeah, going well, Val. You're right. It has been an absolutely wacky year, and looking forward to reviewing it in possibly equally wacky style.
Yeah, well, the bizarre year made me just completely stuff up my intro as well. So, that's how bizarre it has been. Shane Liyanage from Data Driven Sports Analytics joins us. Remember, crunching the numbers, the latest data trends run by our great friend Shane Liyanage, only $39.90 US on the tennismenu.com. Thank you for joining us here to make this show an awesome foursome.
Thanks for inviting me back in. I'm here to carry the drinks, but it should be good.
It's very, very good to have you on. And, well, last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, the coach to the stars, more big names than Leonardo DiCaprio. Marc joins us. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Val, and it's you're struggling when you're the third person to be introed on the show. So I'll just sit here and I'll play my role in the team and just support you guys and everything that you do throughout the day.
I saved it best till last today because we've spent so much time together this year, and I thought I'd really build up to it. Sorry to the other two. But remember, at thetennismenu.com, you can subscribe to our yearly subscription of just $99.90 US for over 600 tennis-specific drills and resources that will make you a better tennis coach. And remember, we do have a Black Friday sale this year, so we'll give you the coupon code towards the end of the show. So stay tuned for that because that is something you don't want to miss. 20% off that coupon code still to come later on. But well, we best get into the review, and we'll start with the WTA because that ended well before the ATP did. And it started in January with Ash Barty doing quite well in Adelaide, Karolina Pliskova doing well in Brisbane. We had Sophia Kennen win the Australian Open over Garbiñe Muguruza. Then we went to February, a little bit of a lull, and then the tour suspended. We came back. It was the Azarenka and Osaka show. They dominated the month of August, really dominated, taking Cincinnati and New York, the final, that was theirs. Azarenka getting through that with a hamstring injury to Osaka. Osaka winning the US Open from a set down in the final over Vika. Then we moved to the clay court season. Simona Halep, seemingly, undoubtedly the winner at Roland Garros. She was swept aside convincingly by 2 seconds, dropping just 28 games in the process. And then there are only probably 3 more tournaments after that. 2 of them won by Aryna Sabalenka, finishing the year extremely strongly. That was the WTA in a nutshell. Most titles by Sabalenka and Halep with 33. The most match wins of the season went to Elise Mertens with 30 and Alina Rybakina coming in second there on 29. So it was a weird and bizarre season. Not really sure what we can gauge. Ash Barty finishes the year world number 1 despite not playing since January as per the new and updated rankings. But Joel, we've spoken at length this year about what it all means and what has happened collectively. Do you still know what to make of who's the form player? Because in each sort of facet of the year, that kind of changed. Sophia Kennen was probably the most consistent in a way, I guess, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think so. And she picked up the most points over the year that was as well. Sophia Kennen, of course, won herself, as you said, Val, the Grand Slam, the maiden Grand Slam at the Australian Open in January, or February, I should say, which feels like an absolute eternity ago now. It really, really does. But I think the great thing about the WTA this year, there was a nice kind of breadth of players across the seasons that performed well. Certainly, I think Kennen was the most consistent, but we saw Osaka play really well, won her second US Open. Victoria Azarenka played really well. Igor Schweinsteig, of course, we spoke a lot about her on our Roland Garros daily shows, and just a reminder to all our listeners that I picked her to win that. But then you look at someone like Aryna Sabalenka, who won herself a couple of titles late in the season. as well. There really was a host of really strong performers. And then you can look at some of the fairy tale stories as well. And a lot of those did come at Roland Garros too. You look at people like Martina Trevisan and also Nadia Podoroska, who I think climbed about 80 positions in the rankings and is now up to, I think, world number 48, having come from 130 or something like that, there or thereabouts. So look, as broken up and as crazy as the year was for the women, there actually were a lot of good stories and a lot of really, really strong performers.
Yeah, there definitely were. And I think there were a lot of fairy tales, as you mentioned, with Trevisan, with Podoroska, and then also the Australian Open on Jabeur, someone you've worked very closely with, Shane, and we can credit you with her rapid rise up the rankings in 2020. He always shakes his head when we say that, but we know it's true. She was one of the big fairy tales as well, as Victoria Azarenka coming back and making that sort of comeback into a Grand Slam final for the first time in 7 years. So really impressive by her. And then you've got Igor Schweinsteig, as Joel mentioned, and Shane. There was so much data, I guess, to dissect this year, and there were a few changes in terms of the angles created and the pace of rallies as well. So would you care to delve into that a little bit to us?
Yeah, thanks, Val. Yeah, crazy season, very interesting. I think certainly as a fan, but also sort of working within the sport, some very interesting trends. I picked three, and the three that I really noticed was, well, first the backhand slice. So there was a 4.8% increase in the backhand slice being used this year compared to 2019. We obviously had less matches, but still a noticeable increase. And last year, we only had two players hit over 35% of backhand slices. You had Ash Barty and Sue Say. This year, we had five. So we had Sara Sorribes Tormo, Ash Barty, Ons Jabeur, Kiki Burton. So just that was something interesting that I saw in the data. The other one that I saw was the inside out. So about roughly the same percentage of inside out shots being used, but there was a 6.7% increase in the success of that. And Elise Mertens, Garbine Muguruza and Naomi Osaka sort of did the best in that category. And the other thing, which Marc and I have talked on a number of times, and we've talked on some of the tennis menu shows, particularly the Roland Garros one, around a 3% increase in the width game. So the ball sort of crossing the sideline first and not the baseline. So Igor Schweinsteig, Ons Jabeur, Leylah Fernandez were three players that sort of use that tactic a bit more. Love to get your thoughts on that, Marc.
Yeah, it's interesting stats, Shane. I think one of the things when I first looked at these stats was the change of season for the clay court definitely would have played a bit of a role. I feel like, a lot of our data and stats have been blown out in certain areas. And I think one of them is through the season of the clay courts, where it was colder, there was a bit more dampness towards the clay. It was a bit slower, which gave players a little bit more time to run around their forehand. As you mentioned there was more time to slice and change it up. And also because of the court dying a little bit, players were utilizing the drop shot a little bit more probably than they ever have on the clay court season. So it feels like there was a little bit of inflated data because of the season. But does that then mean that, the female players are looking to this saying, well, hang on, I had much more success doing it this year. Maybe it's something I add into my game in the future. And, we have spoken about where the female game is going, and there's definitely more players that are able to be more rounded. They're not just the big bashing players that they were a few years ago. Igor Schweinsteig came out and created the angle. She created the slice. She came to the net at Roland Garros, which was fantastic. You've got Ash Barty that's already doing it in world number one. Will this then lead on? And this is probably something for all of us, will this lead on, Val, you probably take over here, but will this lead on to other players coming through and trying to emulate what those successful patterns have been and try to utilize that in their game?
And this is what I was going to ask. My next question: has Ash Barty changed women's tennis in the way that she plays? Because she's got the way that she's improved her movement, yes, but it's her style of game. She hits a lot of topspin, but the slice is such an underutilized asset of the women's game, and you don't see it enough. Yeah. And you look at what Barty does, and she's able to change the pace, change the direction. And it's something that Justine Henin did really well in her career with the one-handed backhand. But Ash Barty, I've never seen a slice on the women's game that is as good as Ash Barty's.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about the Williams sisters changing the game, 10, 12, 15 years ago, whatever it was now, they changed the game into a big power game. Now, are we seeing that change again a little bit and bring in the slice of Ash Barty? Now, we all know that the female players love the ball speed. The more ball speed you play with a female player, the more length you play, the better they play, the better they deflect the ball, the better they absorb that power. Does that now mean that we're going to have the Ash Bartys coming through? I think there's a little bit of a shift in that. I think there's a little bit of a shift in all court players being produced at a WTA level. Now, the key issue is that one thing that Ash Barty has really well, she has a great defensive double-handed backhand as well. Now, you still need to be able to deflect, but then you need the ability to change it. Now, there's not many girls that can do that and have that variety, but I feel like with the way that she has shifted the game, we see Igor Schweinsteig coming through and doing the same thing. It possibly may change others to do that, but it also depends on, where you've grown up, where you've developed, what your strengths are as a player. You won't see Serena Williams playing that way. She'll play, the way she is because of her physical makeup. But I feel like there is going to be a shift in some players coming through that want to emulate what the footprints that Ash Barty has left behind.
Yeah, and we know the way that Serena Williams plays, she's a bulldozer. She will just try and go through you every single time. And that's another question, I guess, for the three of you. She sits on 23 Grand Slams, another US Open semi-final. She was a set up against Victoria Azarenka, and that was a mighty set that she did play in that semi. But she ran out of puff. And it was the same at the Australian Open this year, ran out of puff again. The French Open wasn't, I think she had an injury, so wasn't really there. Where do we see Serena Williams going? We'll start with you, Joel. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Look, it is. And I mean, you're right, Val. I mean, she did run out of puff a few times this season. And, there's no doubt that she's not getting any younger. But, I think she's proven time and time again, Serena, that we just can't discount her. And I know I've done that a number of times, but it's got to a point now where I didn't learn my lesson the first time. I didn't learn my lesson the second time. Didn't learn it the third time. May have learned it the fourth time, but I mean, this time I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to write her off. If there's any player that can achieve something incredible, it's Serena, because if she gets going, we know that she's just so hard to stop. And I think that magic milestone that she's going for, that's something that can really drive her. That would be such an incredible achievement. And you know what? I actually hope she achieves it. I really, really do, because she's been such a great ambassador for not only women's tennis, but for the sport as a whole. I think it'd be great.
Yep. And Shane, looking at how she plays, does the data sort of suit her still? Or like in terms of the way, the winners that she hits, the way she clubs the ball speed and so on? With the evolution of the game, have players figured her out, or are they developing that physical strength to actually go with her?
Yeah, look, I think data-wise, there are more players that are hitting the ball harder. So she has to be on defense a bit more, and she's probably not covering the court the way she was 6-7 years ago. That being said, I think she can get there. I still think she is top 2 or 3 on the grass. I would put a favourite for Wimbledon. And the hard courts, if they're playing a little bit quicker, and the points are a little bit shorter, I still think she's right there in the 5 or 6 that you'd put up as one of the favourites. So, I think she'll get there. I want her to get there. Like Joel said, I think she's changed the game in such a significant way. It'd be great to see her and her career at the top of that list.
Yeah, and from a coaching perspective, Marc, if you're Patrick Mouratoglou, which you're better than Mouratoglou, we all know that, you're in a precarious position, because she has said that she does want to have another child. But what are you saying to it? Like, Serena is obviously, she knows what she's doing on the court. What are you saying to her to just keep that motivation going? Are you just trying to instill that in her and just say, this is 24? That's all you need to say is 24.
Probably not, because I think that the only reason she's playing is because she's the one driven. I think that, from a coaching perspective, you probably wouldn't even need to motivate her at all. I mean, there'll be times where she goes through a rough patch. There'll be times where she's fatigued and tired from being a mother at home and, and doing all that sort of stuff as well, which is, a challenge in itself. So And to all the mums that are playing tennis still, I mean, it's an incredible feat for all of them to be doing it, because, I mean, I know how hard it is having kids. It's not easy, and just to stay focused and to work really hard and to try and be a bit selfish and train yourself is never easy. So she's doing an amazing job. But I mean, I don't know if this is the first time in how long, but she's outside the top 10 now. There's a lot more players inside that top 20 that are going to match her for ball speed, as Shane said. It's going to be a challenge for her. There's no doubt she's good enough, but you know, we're seeing the likes of, you know, Azarenka playing some good tennis, Muguruza's in there. You've got Swiatek coming through. You've got Mertens playing some incredible tennis as well. Belinda Bencic, we're forgetting about, who can strike a big ball. Sabalenka has a great end of the back end of the season. We haven't seen Andreescu for a while. You know, she's 20 years of age and she can strike the ball as big as anyone. You got Sophia Kennen, who's been playing incredible tennis, and don't forget Halep and Ash Barty. Ash Barty didn't play all year. So you look at these players and you have to go through a range of 4 or 5 incredible players throughout the draw now. It's no longer, it was, you know, at one stage it was the Williams sisters and maybe 1 or 2 others. And now all of a sudden we've got this really big group of players, and you look at even down outside the top 20, you're even looking at someone like Sakari, who's playing some good tennis. Jennifer Brady had a breakout year. You've got Angelique Kerber playing in that part. Putinceva's cracking the ball as big as anything. You've got these players that can now match the ball speed. So, you know, for Serena, it's not only about, and Shane hit the nail on the head, she can't just hit through players anymore. She has to find ways to create angles. She has to come forward to the net and take away space a little bit. She has to utilize her big first serve. And, you know, her motivation to play is up to her. I think, you know, if she wants to play, which she's already said she does, you know, Patrick won't even have to worry about that. That's more, you know, her coming out going, yep, this is what I want. He's the one just steering the ship going, okay, well, we need to do A, B, and C to win a title, and it's going to look like this. So he'll be very process driven. She'll be very driven to get that 24. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of girls out there that want to knock her off, because there's nothing better than knocking off a champion.
Yep, that's exactly right. And she wasn't title-less this year. She did win in Auckland at the start of the year, making her, I think, one of the first players to win titles in 4 different decades, the 90s, the noughties, the 2010s, and the 20s now. So the evolution of the WTA has happened before our eyes, and we did say goodbye to a champion this year in Caroline Wozniacki at the Australian Open as well. So am I right in saying it was Ons Jabeur that ended her career, Shane?
That's right, yep.
It was Shane Liyanage that ended her career.
Shane Liyanage, breaking news. Shane Liyanage from Data Driven Sports Analytics ended Caroline Wozniacki's career. There it is. That's your headline from today's show. But look, it would be remiss of us. So the WTA top 10, Barty, Halep, Osaka, Kennen, Svitolina, Pliskova, Andreescu, Kvitova, Bertens, Sabalenka, and Serena Williams finishes the year at world number 11. Now, I want to do something that's very punny, I guess, but I want to do, so for all 4 of us, we're going to go through, before we get into our 2021 prediction and what we think is going to happen, I want to do our tennis menu early bird special. So the older player that's done well, so it could be whatever you want, someone 30 plus that's done well, and that has taken the year by storm. Who gets our prime special, your best player of the year or your most impressive, and who goes hungry, player that had a bit of a disaster on or off court. And this could all be off court as well. So whatever you want to say, go for it. No holds barred. Go as hard as you want. Joel, we'll start with you.
Okay, so my early bird special, I'm going a bit outside the box for a very outside the box player, actually. And Shane actually mentioned her before, Sue Shea. So she finished the year in singles at 67, but on the doubles side of things, year-end world number 1, won 4 doubles titles this year. And she just keeps going strong. And she had a really nice moment with Igor Schweinsteig as well at Roland Garros. I think it was after the second round when Igor beat her. There was a nice photo of Sue and Igor as a ball kid doing the rounds on social media. So she gets my early bird special. Prime special, funnily enough, I just mentioned her there because she's my girl now, Igor.
You own her now.
Yeah, I own her now. Yeah, had to go with her. It was just the way that she won Roland Garros. I mean, she just, regardless of who she was playing, she just stood on her side of the court, just puffed her chest out and just said, you know what, if you're going to win this match, you're going to have to beat me. I don't have to beat you. You're going to have to be the one that's going to beat me. And who goes hungry? Well, for me, it was it was pretty clear it was a real disaster off court for this girl this year, Diana Yastremska. So she had the blackface controversy, which was just a completely just a shocking read of the room by her. And then, of course, there was the breakup with her coach a couple of months later, which culminated in said coach congratulating an opponent on Twitter, saying that she was better on the day. So, a very strange year for Diana.
Yep. No, it was, it was a disaster. Let's just put it that way. Absolute disaster. Shane, who was your early bird special, your prime special, and who goes hungry?
Have to say Azarenka, in terms of the early bird, incredible coming back. I think a lot of people had written her off. She played some incredible tennis. I know so Ons played her in Cincinnati or New York, and it was a tight first set, and we actually felt we could win that one going into it, and then she the way she fought in that second set, and then the way she carried on for the rest of the tournament and the US Open, and her level just kept getting better and better and better. Incredible. She'll be a force next year, so definitely early bird for me. In terms of young player, I feel like Sophia Kennen. I think she's been there or thereabouts in 2019, but she just took the next step. Really, some incredible mental toughness to win the Australian Open. Some really challenging matches. The match against Barty, the match against Garbiñe in the final as well. It just showed that she's she may not have maybe some of the weapons that some of the other girls have, but she's just got some mental toughness that it's going to make her someone in the top 10 for a long time. And can't go past Yum Strength for the goof of the year, I think.
I don't think she's ever going to eat again, Diana Yastremska. Well, she's not allowed to the tennis. She's not allowed to eat from the tennis menu, that's for sure. Marc Sapoulis, who was yours?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty much very similar to Shane. Azarenka absolutely was the player coming back from having a child, and what she's been through from an off-court perspective to be able to perform the way she did was an incredible year. So she gets the old early bird special. The prime, obviously the best year. I'm same as Shane. Sophia Kennen, 22 years of age, 2 Grand Slam finals. Really proving to be a player of the future, not only just now, like she's doing a great job, but I think she'll be consistent right across the board. And I'll go a little different and spice it up a little. But for my going hungry, I feel like this player has underachieved in big moments. Has held number 1 rankings. Has been an incredible athlete. But when the time comes, crumbles like a cookie, and that's Pliskova. I think that she's shown so much promise. I mean, to be a world number 1, she's no slouch, but to not perform on the big stage has been a real disappointment for me over 2020. And, she's had opportunities with players being out of the draws and just hasn't been able to capitalize. And, I feel like she can do it. I feel like she's got the ability, she's got the weapons, but when those big moments come, I think there's a big mindset issue with the way she's going about her game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really disappointing. And we had this discussion at length as to whether she would win a slam. I think this was in the US Open and French Open. And she's got the game to do it, but mentally, who knows where she's at right now. My early bird special, I'm going to go with Petra Kavitva. She is only 30, but I think with her venture to the Roland Garros semifinals for the first time in 8 years, it was so special, and especially after what happened to her. It was the first tournament first major that she played after her home invasion. So I think it was really good to see her get back to a little bit more form on the clay. I think my prime special this year would have to go to Victoria Azarenka, just because of how well she played and her mentality. I think her mindset was fantastic. We saw her meditating on court with the bug on her face and seemingly just unfaltering. She just didn't realize the bug was there. And who goes hungry? Sara Errani for her piss poor effort at Roland Garros.
She's Italian. She can't go hungry.
Well, she's going hungry. She is going hungry. That was just genuinely disgraceful what happened that night against Kiki Bertens. To taunt Bertens and limp off. It was one of the most, and I can say this because I'm half Italian, but it was one of the most Italian things you could ever do. Sara Errani gets my going hungry. She's not eating from the tennis menu. She is banned. Our predictions for 2021, Marc Sapulis.
Yeah, well, I've got two players that I've really liked throughout the course of the year. And I feel like they're in the prime of their careers. One of them is Jennifer Brady, who I think had a bit of a breakout year this year. She has the weapons. She has the game to be able to hurt a lot of players, the big forehand, the big serve, definitely. But the second one is, and a little bit, I guess, close to me, is Arena Sabalenka, who is one of our good friends, Jason Stacey, who I've worked with for a long time, fitness trainer, has been working with Arena for the last few years. And, you know, he's always said it's a work in progress, and it's good to really see her getting those results that she can. She's top 10 in the world now, 22 years of age, last 2 titles of the year, hits a really big ball. She can only get better. And that's the scary thing. She can only get better from where she's at. And, you know, she's playing some pretty remarkable tennis. So I think those two for the 2021, I think are going to have pretty decent seasons. Yep,
I definitely agree with that. Shane Liyanage?
I think for me, I think Naomi sort of takes that, she's already a star, but I think she takes it to the next level and really starts sort of stamping her foot as the best player on the WTA. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I'd love to see Ons to sort of crack in and do a bit better. And in terms of a surprise, I reckon Leylah Fernandez, just watch this young Canadian girl play. She's very, very talented.
Yep, Junior Slam champion as well. So she's got the talent in her pedigree there. Joel Ferrucci?
So this one's very much a watch this space. But I look at someone like Alina Svitolina and really think that she's hitting what should be the peak of her career, kind of mid to sort of mid-20s, there or thereabouts. Been around for a while now, been hovering in the top 10 for a little bit, but hasn't really done too much damage. So if I'm in her camp, I'm really looking for her to maybe make a mark on the WTA next year.
Yeah, not a bad one. Not a bad one at all. My prediction for next year, Ash Barty will win another slam. I just think that she's primed, only 24. She's got a massive buffer in the WTA rankings. We can't forget what she did in 2019 to set herself up for 2020. That wasn't to be, but 2021, hopefully for Ash Barty, will be one of prosper. So we're not sure. There you have it. That's the WTA review. Time for our ATP review here on the Tennis Menus year-end review show. And remember, at the end of the show, we've got our 20% discount for Black Friday. Stay tuned. Keep staying tuned for that. It's Val Febo, Marc Sapulis, Joel Ferrucci, and Shane Liyanage joining you. But this year for the ATP started with the inaugural ATP Cup. Many doubts, but it turned out to be a resounding success with Serbia dominating that. And that Serbian flavour continued at the Australian Open with Novak Djokovic claiming another Australian Open title in a controversial final where he did crack it at the crowd and touch the umpire's foot. Dominic Thiem squandering a 2-1 lead there as well. In February, Djokovic continued that winning run, winning in Dubai, continuing his undefeated season. Rafael Nadal got on the books for another win for himself as well in Acapulco. The tour shut down. We got to Cincinnati. Djokovic won there, continuing his good form as we head to the US Open. Well, nobody saw what was coming there. Undefeated still, Djokovic hits lineswoman Laura Clark with an errant ball. He gets defaulted. Pablo Carreño Busta goes through to the semis, but it's Dominic Thiem who comes from 2-0 down for the first time in a slam final in 16 years to win his first major, the first new major champion since Cilic at the US in 2014. We move to the clay. Rafa doesn't win in Rome. Diego Schwartzman upsets him. Novak again, back on top. They get to the Roland Garros final. Diego Schwartzman gets to his first major semifinal. Rafa destroys Novak. Is that the turning point for the year? We don't know. Novak doesn't win a title to finish the year, loses in Vienna, loses in the ATP finals, doesn't play Paris. Daniil Medvedev starts to peak, wins Paris, wins the ATP finals. It was a bizarre year, really bizarre. Really, really bizarre, I must say. As it was with the women's, it kind of came in 3 separate seasons, I guess. We had the Djokovic domination. We had the US, which was Thiem in the end. And then we had the Nadal clay and then the Medvedev indoor swing. And I guess, Joel, looking at the year as a whole, everybody kind of peaked at different points. And I think I'd have to say my most consistent would have to be 2 players, and that would be Djokovic and Thiem.
Yeah, and I'll throw a third one in there, Andrei Rublev.
Yes, oh my God, how could I forget him?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. 41 wins for the year and 5 titles. He really sort of made a name for himself this year. But I mean, look, it was interesting, Val. I mean, you know, some things change in tennis, and a lot of things did change this year, but others very much stayed the same. Of course, the Australian Open was pre the COVID break. Novak Djokovic won himself, you know, just another Australian Open title at his house, Rod Laver Arena. But then we cast our minds forward to Roland Garros, and Rafael Nadal just waltzes on to no, I'm not going to say the spell. I was going to try and throw some Spanish in, but I'm just going to say 13. He won number 13 at Roland Garros, and yeah, it was like a really strange season. Even we look at someone like Daniil Medvedev, who really ebbed and flowed throughout the year, but just all of a sudden at the end of the year finishes things off with 10 wins in a row and 2 titles in Bercy, and also the year-end finals. It was it was a very, very strange season indeed.
Yep, exactly right. And I guess the thing that we do forget is Roger Federer is still at number 5 in the world, and after playing the Australian Open semi-final, he was there as well. Injury plagued his season, which caused him not to come back. And then you've got, as you said, Andre Rublev, 41 match wins, and you've got guys that had kind of a mini renaissance at times, and Milos Raonic was one of them, making the final in Cincinnati. He was 6th in match wins this year. But what perplexed me, Shane, was there were players that started the year really well before the COVID shutdown, like, say, Gael Monfils started so well, almost won back-to-back titles. And then he just flopped after that. He just absolutely flopped. And talk to us about the data from this year and what you saw with the trends in the ATP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a really good point. And I won't dwell on it too long, but the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, it's interesting to try and name the best players from both, and they're very different, those lists. But yeah, in terms of the data, there's a couple of things that I saw this year compared to last, which were interesting. There was nearly 6% more returns getting back into play than previous years. So than 2019. Diego Schwartzman topped the list. He got 78.4 returns back into play. Interestingly, Yannick Sinner was at number 2. He got 75.1% returns into play. Nadal was at 3, 74.8. Djokovic was 5th at 72 for context. The other thing I saw was return variability. So I'll explain that. What it means is a player might return from 2 meters behind the baseline for the first serve on the deuce side 1 point, and then the very next point they might be 5 meters behind the baseline. So there were more fluctuations this year. With Nadal, Thiem, and Medvedev, the most sort of variability in their return positions. And then the other thing, which we've discussed on previous shows, was there were more 5 to 8 shot rallies. So there was a 4% increase. So last year, in 2019, the 5 to 8 category had 24.1% of rallies. This year it was 28.4%. So yeah, some interesting stats. I'm sure Marc's got coaching perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I mean, again, we'll talk similar to what we did on the WTA. I think the conditions definitely played a role in the consistency of return to serve. I feel like, the court position was another one where a lot of those players, you talk about Medvedev and Thiem and Nadal, especially on the clay, they start really far back, but then they vary it up and maybe take some on the rise. And because of the slow courts, they were trying to adapt, I think, really early, but then found a little bit of a niche where those players can play back or forward, especially Nadal and Thiem on the clay. And what they were able to do was throw the server off a little bit by starting back on one point, by playing up on the next point, and they can play both ways. And that's, the sign of good players, the ability to play defense and offense. And I think, guys like Thiem and Nadal really showed that. And that was in spades, obviously, at the French Open, the way they played and did that. The conditions did play a huge role in 2020. There's no doubt about it. Moving Roland Garros to the post end of the year it'll probably never happen again, but just the conditions were so different from the faster, hotter, more slicker conditions in where they normally played in May to moving it to the back end of the year where it's colder, damp, slower. The balls were changed. Obviously, we spoke a lot about the tennis balls. I know, Shane, you're big on the tennis ball side of things, but the conditions were definitely very, very different. And I think they played a bit of a role in our data for 2020, obviously having no Wimbledon, which means that the 5 to 8 rallies probably would have blown out, a little bit more, because Wimbledon grass season would have been a lot faster, a lot quicker, shorter points. So there's obviously a bit of a change in that. So there's no doubt there was some changes, and I think some players would have realised some different ways to play the game and adapt to the conditions. But definitely, absolutely no doubt that conditions did play a big factor this year.
Well, when we're seeing men playing in leggings in Roland Garros, it's strange. It is bloody strange. And seeing how cold the conditions look, they got long sleeves on. Some of the women had jackets on. It was genuinely crazy what we saw this year in Roland Garros. And I think you are right. I think there was a little bit of a shift this year in terms of like how things were played because of the sheer conditions. And one thing I do want to put to all of you is, we discussed this in our ATP final show, but in best of 3 sets, I'm convinced that the rest of the field are up there with the big 3. They're ready to go. They're fine. They can take that mantle. Best of 5 is still the one. And I think that Thiem and Medvedev are there. They are there. They're ready to take that mantle if they want to. They're there to be the usurpers of the big 3. But can the rest of the field do it? We saw Tsitsipas. He made a second Grand Slam semi-final at the French Open and came from 2 sets down on Novak, but then had a few cramps, had a few injuries, and struggled to get through that 5th set. Then you've got Zverev, you've got Rublev, Schwartzman, Berrettini, Shapovalov, Bautista Agut, Raonic still there, Goffin. You've got a lot of guys that are there that are thereabouts, but can they actually take the mantle from the big 3 over best of 5 sets? That is the question that we need answered. And I guess, will we see that next year? Will we see them challenged? Will we see more new Grand Slam champions? I'll put the first one to you, Shane.
Look, it's probably the question, the key question, I think. For me, yes, on the hard courts, I think we're going to have definitely, like you said, Thiem and Medvedev are right there on the hard courts over 5. I think they're physically capable. In fact, they might even have a little bit of an edge going into their primes. I still think on the clay, Nadal is the benchmark. He played in slightly worse conditions for him in October, and he trounced everyone. So I think back in May, June, he'll be starting that favourite. Thiem will be close on the clay, and Djokovic will be there but thereabouts. On the grass, I think Djokovic and Federer are still the benchmark on the grass. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that Thiem and Medvedev or anyone else in the top 10 have really made enough ground on the grass to challenge them there. So I think that there will be more slam winners. It could be, we could have 4 different slam winners next year, which will be an interesting prospect.
Yeah, well, that would be, I think, the first time since 2014 that we would have that 4 different slam winners, which would be genuinely unbelievable. And I do share your sentiments. I still think Roger Federer does have what it takes at Wimbledon, not just because I genuinely have an unhealthy obsession with the man, but it's probably more that I think that he should have won it last time out, and he really should have, and I'm still hurting over that, but we will move on. But I think that he can actually still do it, and we saw it at the Australian Open this year on one leg, essentially making the semi-finals as well. So who knows what's going to happen. Last time he had a year off, or half a year off, he won the Australian Open in January, but that's going to be 4 years on. So who knows what is going to happen. But I think probably it'd be good to get actually our smorgasbord and our, or not our smorgasbord, our early bird special, our prime special, and our Who Goes Hungry for the ATP, because I'm genuinely interested to hear everybody's, because I feel like there was a lot more tennis played on the men's side this year, and there's a lot more scope for difference here with compared to what we had with the women. So, Marc, we'll start with you, and who goes hungry, who's our early bird special, and who's our prime special.
All right, so I feel like the guys who obviously are the older type guys on the tour that have done really well this year. Obviously, you can't go past 13 Roland Garros for Rafa. I think it was an outstanding achievement. And obviously the record that Novak had, what did he lose? 3 matches or 4 matches for the entire year or whatever it was? 5. So incredible year. So those two obviously played some really consistent tennis throughout the year. So well done to them. The player who I feel is just primed and had a great year was Dominic Thiem. I felt like he's probably pushed his way up into that top 3 category, as you did say, Val. And I think, I think he's played some exceptional tennis throughout this year and really, really maturing well. And let's go with the Hungary. This fella did some stupid crap over the year. I was going to say another word, but he's really he's had a great year playing wise. He's definitely Val's best mate. The Adria Tour, the Adria Tour, and the beheading of a lineswoman probably was taking the cake for.
What was your word, Marc? He throated her.
I think Novak takes the cake. Did some absolute shocking stuff over the year. Played some good tennis, but yeah, I mean, and wanting to come back into the player council and all this sort of jargon. I think Novak, just go quiet and just play your tennis, and don't get into the media as much, please.
Oh, I heard it very close to an F-bomb there. I really hope that was one.
It was coming.
Yeah, but no, I definitely think it was. I concur with you on that last one, but we'll get to mine in a sec. Shane Liyanage?
Yeah, the early bird for me, Yannick Sinner. So I think.
Well, he's not old.
I thought early bird.
No, early bird's the old person because old people.
Early bird. Well, then Rafa Nadal. Yeah, I think 13 Roland Garros. I think it was amazing that achievement. In terms of the prime, look,
Sinner.
Probably Sinner. I think he's made that leap. I think the next 2-3 years we're going to really see him take another step, and I think he'll be one we'll be watching on our screens for some time. And in terms of the one that goes Hungary, another one that was in the Adria Tour and has certainly been in the headlines for the wrong reasons. Alexander Zverev, good tennis player, had a reasonable end to the season, but the stuff that's going on off court is not great.
Yep. That's a very good nomination there. Joel, Ferrucci?
So early bird special. He's not necessarily that old. He's only 31. But John Millman, we love him and broke through for thoroughly deserved first ATP title in Nur Sultan this year. So he gets that. The prime is going to Andrei Rublev. We spoke a bit about him before. 41 wins for the year, 5 titles, pocketed about $2 million in prize money. And who goes Hungary? Now, this is someone that has been lost a little bit in the background of the Alex Zverev situation. He is the original domestic bandito, Nicolas Basilashvili. So he is facing trial next year. So he's going to court. And what I found staggering as well was that even on the court, since the restart, he has not won a match and has only won 1 set. That is staggering, really staggering.
Yeah, he was quite frankly terrible.
He was shocking.
Yeah, after the restart. But yeah, domestic bandito, there we go. That was a word I was not expecting to come out of your mouth today, Joe. My early bird special, I think I am going to have to go with Nadal and what he was able to do at Roland Garros. And then again, making the semifinals at the ATP finals, I thought that was really impressive. It's a tournament he doesn't generally have success in. So to get out of the round robin stage, I think for the first time in 7 years for Nadal. So I thought that was really impressive. Could be later than that he did that. But yeah, I think Rafa for me, for my early bird special. My prime special, I'm going to go with Daniil Medvedev. I think the way that he finished the year was phenomenal, and watch out for him next year. He'll feature a little bit in my predictions for next year too. And well, who goes Hungary? I got to go with Marc. Novak, you're an absolute drip. Like what? The fact that and his sycophantic fans can go with him. They are not allowed to eat from our tennis menu ever, because they are abusive. They don't accept criticism. Novak was a moron this year, and they still think he's God. And his parents as well can also go in that as well. They can go Hungary too, because apparently Novak was chosen by God, and he's the second coming. But God, he's a moron, is what he is. So let's keep going. Our predictions for 2021. We'll keep the spinning wheel going, and we'll start with you this time, Shane.
Yeah, for me, I think Dominic Thiem, we're going to see him really threaten for the number one spot. I think he will start certainly 3 of the 4 slams. He'll be one of the favorites. I think he's probably got a little bit to sort of get his level up on the grass, but I think he can do it. Yeah, for me, he's the one to really set the bar next year.
I love it. Will we see finally someone outside the big 4 reach number 2? Leighton Hewitt was the last one in 2005 that was outside of those 4 men that was number 2 in the world. So it's been a very, very long time, over 15 years. So it'll probably get to 16 at some point. Marc Safoulis?
Yeah, Dominic Thiem. I think, the way he played throughout this year, he's in that age bracket now where he's hitting his absolute peak. And that's, we talk about between 27, probably 32, 33 as being a male peak period. And that's what I think Dominic Thiem's going to do. I think he's up there with the big 3. I think now it's the big 4, as we did mention in our end-of-season show. And you're right, I think Daniil Medvedev's ready to take that as well and become part of that group. But Dominic Thiem just a couple of years ahead of that. And obviously that experience, he's been playing those best players in the big moments for a little bit longer. And I feel like he's ready to possibly win 1, maybe 2 slams next year. I think he's good enough to do it, and I think he's good enough to do this for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a real chance at a lot of them now. We saw that at the Australian Open, the US and the French is a given. He's made 2 finals there already. Joel?
Well, I think we're going to have another new slam winner next year. And the 2 names that I'll throw in the ring are Daniil Medvedev, who I've spoken a lot about, but also Stefanos Tsitsipas. I think he is capable. I know we've sort of spoken a little bit about him potentially, being just a little bit behind and still having some things to work on, which is absolutely true. But I see enough in his game to believe that he is more than capable of winning a slam as early as next year. And probably the 2 that I'm really eyeing off would be probably Wimbledon and also the US Open.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and even the Oz Open, he made the semi-finals here in 2019. So he's proven here, strong Greek crowd. So he'd have a lot of support behind him as well. And one that we didn't mention before, I think, just quick shout out to Diego Schwartzman for what he was able to achieve this year. And Shane, you mentioned him before, but for his height of 170 centimeters to do what he did this year, just simply amazing. So applause to him. But my prediction for next year, we've got 2. I think Federer is going to win Wimbledon, going for it. And we will see after Wimbledon 2021, Daniil Medvedev will be your world number 1. He's got no points to defend, absolutely nothing. And he's closing in. He's only 4,000 behind Djokovic. He has a good start to the year next year. He's primed for it, primed. And the courts in Indian Wells and Miami, they'll suit him. And then you got the Australian Open. And then if he can somehow resurrect his form on the clay, he's going to be very, very tough to beat. So that's my prediction for 2021. But that's about all we've got time for on the Tennis Menu's year-end review show. Remember, that code I was telling you about for Black Friday for our $99.90 US subscription, that is Friday Menu. All capitals, all one word, Friday Menu. Type that in when you subscribe. You get 20% off your $99.90 US discount. That's over 600 tennis-specific drills and resources to make you a better tennis coach. Head to thetennismenu.com for that. So please do. It is a wonderful package that's been set up by Marc Safoulis. You can also get the Crunching the Numbers package that's helped run by our great friend Shane Liyanage for just $39.90 US on thetennismenu.com as well. And that's where we'll say thank you to Shane Liyanage for his efforts this year on our US Open, French Open, year-end finals, and year-end review show. So thank you for being part of our programs this year, Shane. It's been a pleasure discussing data with you, and we'll see you in 2021.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great show. I've really enjoyed when I've been a listener and really enjoyed coming on the show. 4 great tennis brains, or 3 great and me, but it's good fun.
I think it'd be more 3 great than me, so don't worry. But Marc, we'll get to Marc last again, because that's the last time, so we'll do it again. I'll just leave you hanging. Joel Ferrucci, thank you for your efforts, mate. It's been a pleasure having you on. We didn't have you on the US Open, but the French Open year-end finals, and now it's been an absolute pleasure. We obviously see each other every week on Breakpoint Podcast, so it's nice to see you on here as well.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks for having me involved, mate. Thanks, Marc, and thanks to Nick Gissing as well. And yeah, I'll see you boys for the Australian Open, whenever that is.
Yeah, whenever that is. We didn't touch on that, but it seems like from what we hear yesterday, or what we heard yesterday, that January 25 looks the key date at the moment that will start. We're not sure about lead-up tournaments yet, so it's a watch this space type thing as well. But the man, the myth, the legend, the coach of the stars. He can coach water to be dry. He can coach anything. Marc's the fullest, better than Moratoglu. Hashtag Marc for PM. Hashtag Marc for world president. Thank you very much for your efforts. It's been an absolute pleasure spending so much time with you this year throughout the US Open, the French Open, the year-end finals, and now today. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me as part of this show, and thank you for your efforts this year, as they have been unparalleled.
No, thank you for having me as part of your show, Val. And maybe if we get one more bloke or a lovely female to come on this show, it looks like I'm drifting off after being introduced third and exited third. So it looks like I'm shifting off to the bench in 2021 and being replaced. But no, it's been a good year. We didn't think that we'd get through this. We launched in August the tennis menu, and we've actually done three pretty remarkable shows thanks to you guys. And 2021 hopefully brings more. I think we've got a lot in store. We've got so many things coming up, plenty of webinars. So if you haven't signed up to our subscription, you'll get all the webinars free of charge. We want to help you guys out. We want to connect with our audience. We're going to have tennis coaching podcasts. We're going to have more drills coming. So to add to the 600, there's heaps coming. We've got special guests doing some special packages. So really exciting time for the tennis menu, and couldn't be possible without the work of everybody, and Shane and Lauren for their packages, George, Callum, Nick, Busuttil. We've got Val, we've got Joel. We've got Sally on our photographer as our photographer. We've got Danny doing our journals. Who else have we got? Got my sister doing some stuff. We've got Kathleen over in the Philippines. We've got Nick, obviously, who puts this all together. So big shout out to everyone. And 2021, here we come.
Here we come indeed. And look, it would be remiss if we didn't end the show with something that has carried us through since the US Open, and it has given us the strive to be better and to pick things properly and not miss out. And that was the punishment that was originally going to be bestowed on me. That is the green machine, the Mankini. I thought I'd have to bring it out one last time in 2020. Shane had to block his eyes. That's how I know it would be repulsive if I had to wear it. So look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to all three of you this year, and everybody else that's thank you for listening. Thank you. But remember, you can tune in to all of the shows that we've done this year. Subscribe to our YouTube page. They're all on there, and on social media at the Tennis Menu on Twitter and Instagram, the Tennis Menu on Facebook and LinkedIn as well. You can subscribe to the podcast that we've had. We're on Whooshkaa and we're on Apple Podcasts as well. So it has been a pleasure bringing tennis into your homes throughout this bizarre and weird COVID-19 year, and we hope that you have enjoyed them. We can't wait to do them all again in 2021. But for today and for 2020, it's been Marc Safoulis, Shane Liyanage, Joel Ferrucci, and myself, Val Febo, signing off. Have a happy Christmas, happy New Year, and happy Australian Open, whenever that may be.